All right, we are now live. Anyone has chat yet? Welcome. If not, we'll give everyone a few minutes to filter in here. How's everyone doing today?
I'm getting by. I'm pumped for the raid.
I'm still very tired, but also pretty pumped for the raid.
Yeah, we had to make Wallace wake up at 8 a.m. to be on the stream.
It was 8:30,
Or 8:30.
It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, noon is probably about my 8 a.m. lately anyway. Too lazy to do anything.
My sleep schedule is all kinds of messed up, so I can't even comment. It just goes in a giant circle over and over again.
You take the days as they come, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually my life.
Sometimes 8 a.m. I've been up for a few hours. Sometimes it's bedtime. It depends.
Sometimes it's 8 a.m. and you still haven't gone to bed.
Yep.
I don't usually get that bad because, like, my work will come around, then I'll have to wake up at a reasonable time again. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you just get so distracted by work that you just work through the night and don't even notice it.
That was my life on what day was that? What is today? Today's Friday. That was my life on Wednesday. On a Wednesday, I spent all day setting up my sim profiles for all the Azerite gear and whatnot, and I procrastinated throughout most of that time, so it wasn't actually all day, but there was definitely a number of hours put into that. And then just yesterday, instead, I decided to work on my spreadsheet where I generate the profiles. And if I did this step first, I could have saved like 5+ hours.
Yeah, probably. I mean, did you run an entire permutation of all the different Azerite combos, or?
No, I was like, what it was, I have it set up now where I post in the link with the Azerite traits that I want, the WoW link, and it will extract all the information for me and put it into a profile set.
Gotcha, okay.
Or before, I was like copy and pasting certain things off the page very inefficiently.
Yeah, I can see how that's very time consuming.
I would like to thank multiple nested substitute statements in Excel and import XML for making my life easier now, though.
Yeah, that's a project for you to do. It's just write a script to generate a profile set that includes all different Azerite permutations on a specific parameter. That'll be fun. Can you imagine the size of that sim?
That would be ridiculous.
Like a 2,000 actor sim.
I think it'd be bigger than that.
Probably.
A lot bigger than that.
But you get too much bigger than that, I think you're going to start running into RAM issues. That's a lot of shit to store.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like 2,000 will easily eat up like 50 gigs.
Oh yeah.
All right, we've got some people here, some people in chat, some people in the viewer list, so I guess we'll go ahead and get into it today. So, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk a bit about the new raid, Troll Raid, Battle for Dazara Lore, or whatever it else used to be called. This Battle for Dazara Lore now, I think. So, we'll talk about what you can do for raid prep, how you should approach it. We'll talk a bit about some of the new gear from the raid, and then we'll do our log review. Maybe a few other random bits sprinkled in. All right.
I'm sure people.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry, the lag between Discord, I'll randomly interrupt at points, but yeah, no, you go ahead.
Yeah, so we're just on Wowhead here. We're gonna use the Wowhead pages to kind of navigate through this. So Wowhead up top here has this patch 8.1 drop down. It's got season 2. It's got the Battle for Dazar Lore raid. So let's go right there. Champions of the Light is the first fight, so we'll start from there. So we get to kill a Paladin. Should be exciting, right?
Very powerful Paladin.
The Paladin that your class should have been. Really.
Yeah.
They even have seals just to mock us.
Yeah.
Right?
People are going to be very happy about this in the forums once people start experiencing it.
Yeah, you can just see that shit coming.
There's also a few things I'll point here that I think are hilarious. But we're just on the Wowhead page. On the Wowhead page, they have a little quick tips section, so basics. We're not going to focus on tank or healer because we do DPS. We don't care about tanks or healers, let's be honest. We give them our wisdom and they leave us alone. That's what we expect. Alright, so there's two phases really. There's the Seal of Retribution and Seal of Reckoning. So during Seal of Retribution, you don't want to kill any adds, otherwise the boss will gain Zealotry stacks. So the Zealotry will just increase the damage that it does. So there's potential where if you stack it too high, tanks are going to die. Potentially. Because there are some weird burst strategies that they were on the PTR as well.
Yep.
Unless, of course, you want to proc Retribution a lot more often than just wail away.
Yeah, ultimate class fantasy fight here. Kill a Paladin and proc Retribution by killing your raid. And the second phase is during Seal of Reckoning. So during the Seal of Reckoning phase, you want to be off of the boss instead and be killing the adds that are throughout the room. So it says here, do not stand between the boss and the adds as Wave of Light will be cast. So Wave of Light's a little cone that travels. We'll check that out a little bit later. We want to interrupt heal and penance from disciples. That's pretty straightforward. We got dodge, damage, interrupt. Do not face the Dark Forge caster when it casts Blinding Faith. So sort of like our Blinding Light talent. Turn around, don't get disoriented. And use defensive cooldowns when the boss has high Zealotry stacks and or Avenging Wrath and cast Judgment Reckoning.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one.
So
I can see that wiping many people in Mythic.
Yeah, so right away, a good spot to pop Shield of Vengeance. Please note that for the Avenging Wrath that the boss uses, it states, fills the caster with Holy Wrath. It's a very interesting choice of words, I'd have to say.
I'm surprised the boss doesn't actually have some sort of Holy Wrath mechanic.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
You know, they kept it all of Legion. They must be itching to use it somewhere.
Alright, so the purpose of this isn't to just go over the fight strategy and just read it off here. What we're doing is we're taking a look at the abilities here and seeing how we can best utilize our toolkit based on what we're reading. So what we're saying, it might be true, it might not be true. Some of us have a little bit of experience on the PTR on these fights, some not. But we're going to try to show you what you should be doing, how to utilize some of these resources, how to think for yourself a bit, try to pre-plan some things. Once we get into the heroics and mythics next week and the week after, it might turn out a bit different. Tuning is definitely a thing. We'll have to see how hard the fights are or how easy some of them are. We'll have to see how some of the mechanics work. They might be slightly different. Things always change.
I definitely expect this to be one of the easier ones just for, first mythic bosses. Never too difficult. They're always pretty straightforward mechanically.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll just be like you're on the boss, then you're off the boss, you're on the boss, you're off the boss kind of thing. Until you just burn.
But there's also other things you gotta pay attention to, right? Like when she phase swaps, she's going to cast Judgment of Righteousness, and that's going to buff one of the adds, and that's going to be your kill target.
Yeah, so you can see here, when the boss reaches 100% energy, she will cast Judgment Righteousness, buffing a random add's damage by 200% and healing by 150%, or switching to the Seal of Reckoning. So, depending on how timers work on this fight, if this happens at a time where our wings is coming off cooldown, it might be a scenario where you might want to save your wings to burst that ad down. Or it could be just a total pushover, or maybe your raid has super high damage and it's not needed. It's something you'll have to experiment with. Assuming you don't go in and one-shot the boss.
My expectation would be that you can just interrupt or whatever else the ad to deal with it that way rather than needing to burst it down, but you might have to for sure. It's definitely...
Yeah, I mean, it is a first boss, so first boss are typically easier, so it might not be a thing, but it might be.
Right.
Just something to think about.
And as for talent choice, it's going to be really hard to say which talents you're going to want to take here. Kind of gauging what lines up with Crusade, or if, just using Divine Purpose might be better. Though, might not use Divine Purpose because of the way it's interacting with Light's Decree, and that's going to be a problem because it's one of the traits we want.
Mm-hmm.
Imperium Power still interacts the same way, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Unfortunately. Alright, so Seal Retribution, this is the phase where it always starts active. So on this one is where you want to focus on the boss. And if ads died during this seal, the boss will gain extra stacks of zealotry. So you want to avoid killing the ads, so they're probably going to be tanked apart. So you're not going to be able to even passive cleave if you're a pad lord, so. Ads ads tanked away.
Mm-hmm.
Then it swaps. See, straightforward, nothing exciting there in the first phase. Just kill the boss. Don't touch ads. So then we get to the ad phase. So this is where the boss will gain stacks if she's being attacked still. And that one ad will be picked to be buffed by that righteousness, so that ad will be focused down. So you'll be mainly killing that ad first and cleaving down the others. So here, all 3 ads should be defeated before the boss reaches 100% energy, when she will switch back to Seal of Retribution.
And on Mythic, that might be a good time to hold your cooldowns to kill off those ads before she swaps and summons. You don't want to get overwhelmed.
Definitely.
Which means we could do pretty well on this fight. Our kit tends to favor cooldown usage, especially AoE damage during cooldown usage. So we could be very strong.
Like,
but it is only the first boss.
Or just any big trash pool.
Yeah, basically anything where your wings is up. I don't think there are very many classes that can match our burst AoE on our burst AoE with. Actually, I don't think anyone can.
No, I think Unholy DK and Fire Mages can.
Yeah, Unholy was the one I was going to say is pretty busted at it. But we do okay.
Yeah, right now. But I mean, just imagine having 3 Lights Decree. Like, what's going to happen there?
True.
That's effectively a 60% damage increase to your every spender you use. It's kind of crazy.
The very fortunate thing on this versus Trash, though, or on Trash, it's brand new, and you have to pop Bubble so you don't get aggro and die. On this one, the ads are already being tanked, so they have an aggro table already, so we shouldn't pull aggro and kill ourselves.
Yeah, that definitely helps.
Alright, Wave of Light. So here's one of the abilities from earlier. Wave of Light. The positioning of the ads and the boss relative to the raid is an important aspect of the encounter due to the boss's Wave of Light ability. On a timer, the boss will cast Wave of Light, sending out a slow-moving yellow wave directed towards the position of a randomly selected ad. If there are no ads when this ability is cast, a player's location will be chosen instead, the current tank of the boss being the most likely choice. The wave will deal a moderate burst of holy damage and apply a 7-second magic dot to all players it passes through. The wave will also place a magic buff on any ads it touches, healing them for 5% of their maximum health every second for 7 seconds. Both players' dots and the ads' hots can be dispelled or purged. And the ability is cast during both seal phases. So here's a little picture over here. This little wave or like cone-like thing will travel across the room. You don't want to get hit by it, and you don't want the ads to hit it either.
It's a very easy mechanic to dodge. Mind you, there aren't very many mechanics you need to dodge on this fight. I think it's only Wave of Light and Consecrate.
Yeah, it's pretty simple mechanically.
And it's very idiot-proof. Well, for the most part.
Here's some tank stuff. We don't care about that. Yeah, when the boss reaches 30% HP, that's when she gains her Avenging Wrath, which fills her with Holy Wrath. So again, same fight, just more damage. Says here you might want to save some damage and healing cooldown for later stages. So the ads are the forces of the Crusade. And we have one set at the start of the fight, and during each new Seal of Retribution phase, there will be a new set of ads. That's why, like we mentioned earlier, it's important to make sure the ads die before she reaches 100% energy. You have too many ads, could get overwhelmed. Or it could turn into Scorpyron, and it's the cheese strat.
The ads, I think, have a bit more health than that, so I doubt it would get that bad.
No, not that bad.
Yeah,
But
and in Laden Farm, people will definitely just try and fucking pad as much as they can.
we'll see how long All-Star points last on this boss. Yeah, so the abilities, like I mentioned earlier, there's a heal, which you want to interrupt, a penance, which is a channel, which you want to interrupt, and Divine Burst, which you want to interrupt. But low priority is Divine Burst, high priority is heal, and it looks like penance is mid priority. Definitely want the heals interrupted. And Divine Blast, if you can, make use of it. Like it says here, it says all of these abilities are powerful. It's unlikely that your raid will be able to cover all casts throughout the encounter.
Yes. And on Mythic, you're going to need to contend with another cast, what I think is called Angelic Renewal, which is actually just a massive heal that heals everything, I believe. And if you don't interrupt that, you're probably going to wipe. So when you're on Mythic, that's something you got to be paying attention to.
Yeah, so here's the first one of the ads is Dark Force Crusader. They deal damage to the tank. They will also cast that Blinding Faith, so that's where you want to turn around. You don't get disoriented or disorientated. Turn your back, just like the Snake boss and Temple of... Is it Temple? Yeah, and Temple.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Right, the Crusaders will also frequently cast Consecration, which has that very nice stained glass Consecration look that we lost, that they gained. I'm sure we'll see lots of forum posts about this as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Though I feel like they might have designed that new graphic for this encounter alone.
Yeah, that's probably their intention.
Yeah, which is a real shame. That's okay, we can still use the Puddle of Piss consecration animation we've been using for the last 15 years. That's okay.
It's so nostalgic.
Such feels, dude. I can count polygons, man.
Yeah, so Consecration, you want to get out of it because it does damage. It also makes the ads take less damage, so your tanks have to drag stuff out. Pretty straightforward. Here's like the alternative burst strategy. Guilds with excellent single target damage may wish to funnel their damage into the boss throughout the fight, ignoring the ads entirely, aside from the tank who still keeps them away. So pretty much that means the fight's gonna do a crap load of damage. But if you can do it, you can do it. I'm not sure if this is going to apply to Mythic, but...
No, I think it might. It would just be like there's a certain point in the fight where you just start DPSing the boss regardless of the phase. Like when she hits like a certain threshold. I think it's mostly just the AoE damages where it's an issue, I think the tank damage should be mostly manageable for that.
Alright, so heroic changes, aside from numerical changes, there is one mechanical addition to the counter on heroic mode. The boss will occasionally buff a randomly chosen ad with divine protection, which we don't have anymore, Blizzard, as Rets, reducing all damage they take by 99% for 6 seconds. This effect can't be placed on the same ad more than once every 30 seconds, as the ability also grants forbearance. As of latest testing, it was not possible to remove this buff via offensive magic purges in Mass Dispel. So all it does is makes the fight more annoying.
It also means you got to be paying attention to which ad you're attacking and not being a mongoloid and just cleaving wild.
Yeah, like Sisters are the Coven on Waycrest Manor, where it swaps.
Yes.
So Mythic. Throughout the fight, the boss will occasionally cast Prayer for the Fallen. This will cause ads alive or dead to stop all their... What's a dead ad doing that requires them to be stopped? But requires all ads alive or dead to stop all of their actions and begin to cast a powerful ability. Alright, Crusaders will use Divine Mallet, which is definitely not Light's Hammer, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
That is a weird name.
Oh, it's like... Is it Divine Hammer plus a Blessed Hammer in a combination? Like, what is this?
It's
I
kind
think
of
it
a
is just
cancer
based
mechanic
on
where shit just flies out around the room in the same manner the third boss in the Underrot does his special. It's just like that. Except there's a lot of them, and you gotta dodge them all.
Alright, so this is the hammers. They hit hard. They do holy damage, so you want to dodge them. So I guess if you're a light forged Draenei, you'll take 1% less damage, so good for you. The ad tank should attempt to keep the Crusaders at the other end of the encounter. Oh, so if so I guess having multiple Crusaders in one spot would be a horrible idea.
Yeah. And of course, because this mechanic procs off of already dead mobs, you're going to need to kind of move them around the room and pay attention to where those hammers are going to be coming from. So as the fight progresses, it's going to get increasingly hectic, but it's only the first boss. I can't imagine it's going to be like somebody screwing up Kahuni orbs on Mythic and screwing everyone.
Yeah. Disciples will cast Angelic Renewal. This interruptible cast will heal the boss back to... Yeah, so definitely interrupt that.
Yeah, you don't want to miss that.
Yeah, it's pretty much dodge hammers and make sure someone interrupts that cast, and that's Mythic. And I guess on Mythic, they'll be killing the ads in different spots for each wave, so you don't get overwhelmed by a bunch of hammers. Alright, so that one's pretty straightforward. We'll move on to the second fight here, which is Grong. Your Lions.
Second fight, yeah.
So if you're Alliance, it's Grong the Revenant, and if you're Horde, it's Grong the Jungle Lord. He is a gorilla, so everything in this encounter is gorilla or ape themed with their names. Because the Alliance and Horde version are different, they have different names, but this guide does use the Horde names. So if you're Alliance, come back to this page and look for yourself and see what the abilities names are actually called.
Just think of everything as like necrotic something or spirit something, and it's the same fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only real distinction between these fights is where you fight the boss and what damage is dealt. So if you're playing, I think it's Alliance, you fight the necrotic version, and if you're Horde, you're fighting the nature version.
Yeah, Horde.
That's really the only difference.
Alright, so quick tips, of course. Interrupt all of the Ape Tagonizer cast to kill the Ape Tagonizer 3000 as soon as possible. Pick up the Ape Tagonizer core and use it to trigger Tantrum when Grong has 50 plus rage. Melee players should spread out. Move out of reverberating echoes before they explode. When Roar is cast, have a buddy.
Yes, or if you don't, you get feared.
All right.
That one shouldn't be too hard for melee though, because you
No.
should be close enough to someone to not get feared most of the time. I think that's more of a
Yeah.
range.
Definitely more of the range healer kind of deal. All right, so Tantrum. Grong gains. I keep wanting to say Grod, but it's Grong. All right, so the ability. All right, Grong gains rage passively over time, and once he reaches 100% rage, he will cast Tantrum. This ability consists up to 4 separate slams, each of which deal a burst of damage and apply a stack of Shattered to the entire raid. So Shattered is a dot and causes you to take increased damage from Tantrum. It's a 40-second debuff. And it stacks. When Tantrum has been triggered, the boss will attempt to spend all of his rage in chunks of 25. Each chunk of 25 rage will cause another blast of damage to the raid. When this ability is used at 100 rage, the boss will hit the raid 4 times with the final hit dealing incredibly high damage due to the shattered debuffs applied beforehand, likely causing a wipe. The raid must... Oh, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, the raid must trigger the Tantrum spell at lower rage points as to ensure that the boss does not hit the raid more than 3 times with each Tantrum triggered. The raid also wants to ensure Tantrum isn't triggered more frequently than every 40 seconds, as the shattered debuff applied via the previous Tantrum would not have timed out. So I think safe to say that the Tantrum is probably their inspiration for the Grong trinket, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, and this is not necessarily a mechanic we need to be paying attention to, because there's nothing we can really do to counter it. I don't think Blessing of Protection removes Tantrum stacks to save someone who's low. So
No, it's nature damage, so it won't.
Mm-hmm. It's yet another example of a fight only dealing spell damage, so we can't actually utilize our utility on it, which is great.
I think there is stuff you can bop in this fight, but yeah, not that.
Yeah, not that specifically. I think the tank toss, you can bop the tank so he doesn't deal damage to the people he lands on, but that's fairly inconsequential.
Yeah, and also to point out, it's probably a good area to proc your Shield of Vengeance to do more damage.
Yes.
So,
not that you wouldn't want to be using your defensive cooldowns there already. That's like where you're most likely to die.
Yeah. So like mentioned earlier, it said you want to use the Ape Tagonizer at 50%, so I'll do it twice. So he'll clap once, shield, he'll clap the second time, it'll pop. Alright, so the raid can trigger the Tantrum before 100% rage with the Ape Tagonizer 3000. So this is an ad that spawns throughout the fight. The first one will show up 15 seconds in and every minute after. The ad does not need to be tanked. It will spam cast a move called Ape Antagonize. The Ape Antagonize is interruptible. So interrupt it and kill him. And once you kill him, it explodes. It does nature damage and a knockback to everyone in range. Not really significant there. So when the ad dies, the Ape Antagonizer core will drop. A player can run to the orb and consume it to gain a 20-second debuff. The debuff does a light damage, not very important. And when the player uses, it also gives them a new ability. And when they use that new ability called the Discharge Ape Antagonizer core on the boss, it'll deal 5% of the boss's maximum health as damage and will immediately trigger a Tantrum. So this is where you'll make use of this. I assume most people will have a ranged player grab the orb. They'll use that orb to trigger the Tantrums. You're only doing 2 at a time instead of 3 or 4. Not really much to worry about there for us.
Hmm.
Right, rage acceleration. So again, he works on that rage bar. At the start of the fight, he is an angry ape and gets 10 rage per 12 seconds. At 70%, he is an enraged ape and gets 10 per 11 seconds. At 40%, he's a furious ape with approximately 10 rage per 10 seconds. The rage it doesn't build up super fast by the looks of it, but one of the mechanics. Alright, so here's a bestial combo. This is a tank combo, so we'll leave that one to the tanks. Megatomic Secret Missile. This is one of the range mechanics, so a missile will fly to a ranged player. So again, not really something to be worried about too much.
Mm.
There's the Reverberating Slam. Grong will...
This one is the one that we're worried about the most, I think, for us.
Yeah.
So Grong slams a nearby enemy, or near enemy within melee range, dealing physical damage in a 10-yard radius around the target. After a short delay, Reverberating Echo is then triggered. So it deals upfront damage, and then it leaves a puddle that will also do damage.
Yeah, and the timer between when he initially hits and then when the puddle explodes is very short, so you kind of have to be loosely spread in melee so you're actually able to move out of it. Especially for me, because of playing with like high latency, I find that kind of difficult, but it's definitely a thing where you need to be spread, like pre-spread before that mechanic comes out.
Yeah, melee you're going to want to be spread out around the boss fairly evenly. You don't want to stack up, you'll kill people.
Hello, Mithrax.
Because orbs just wasn't enough.
And I guess one of the important things is that, again, that he does do a roar on heroic, and apparently it can occur when the slam happens, so you'll have to spread and stack it very efficiently to not get feared. So every 20 seconds, the roar will go out. It deals a moderate burst of physical damage. If you're not within 5 yards of another player, you will be feared. And because it does happen every 20 seconds, it'll overlap with mechanics such as the slam and the seeker missile, but that's for range, so. Also, another kind of tank, kind of not thing is the bestial throw. So at the end of that bestial combo that they do, Grong will pick up the tank and throw him across the room. And I guess this is one of the things that we could bop the tank for, potentially.
Yes. And during testing, it not only negated the damage on the tank, but anybody that might have otherwise been caught in the area where he hit. Don't know if that's intended, but it could have some use if it's intended.
Alright, mythic difficulty. So, a bunch of number changes. Alright, the crushed debuff will applied via bestial smash now lasts 2 seconds, down from 2.5. Lower cast time. Not really important to us. So the roar is now an instant cast rather than a cast time, so you'll have to watch your timers.
Just have to watch your timers, yeah.
I'm sure some of the weak aura packs will have something built in to remind people. Or someone will make one, at least, and that. So now also 2 ads will spawn instead of 1. So yeah, I guess you gotta split it a bit to make sure they both get interrupted.
Yeah, you just have to like have the melee split and shit like sequence interrupts correctly, but You had to save cooldowns sometimes for them on testing, but I'm not sure if that's going to continue in live.
Yeah, it's really hard to say.
Yeah, because usually on PTR servers, things are overtuned for the most part, so might not be tuned as high on live.
At the end of the day, this fight's just going to be a really frenetic version of the Butcher. It's essentially the DPS check fight of the tier. And it's the second boss.
Is there a pool party strat for it, though?
I don't know. There could be. I mean, there's always something you can do on fights these days that really trivializes something. Might be a rock you could stand on. Who knows?
Yeah, just stand on this rock unfettered, you're okay.
And on Mithrax.
Alright, and Mithrax, too.
And Mithrax, yeah.
Alright, Jadefire Masters. This fight has a lot of abilities, for some reason.
Yes, there's a shit ton of abilities, but when in actual practice, it's a really simple and straightforward fight.
We could probably just talk about the ones that apply to us specifically, if you want, rather than going over all the
we'll
healer
just go over
and
the quick tips first. So, quick tips. Keep the monk's health at a lower percentage than the mage. Engage the monk in melee combat to interrupt the whirling Jade Storm. DPS the mage's fire shield, interrupt Pyroblast. Alright, so what are the main ones here we should worry about?
Well, there's one thing you should be frustrated about, and that's the monk literally flying all over the fucking... So have fun running around.
You're going to have to chase him a lot.
Yep.
There's also the tigers running around. I don't know what difficulty they start coming in on, but you're going to have to chase those and DPS those down.
Yeah, so that's the Whirling Jade Storm. The monk will frequently charge to a random nearby area of the encounter space and begin to channel Whirling Jade Storm. It does damage, and he is spinning until someone gets in melee range and hits him. So the mage, I guess the mage does have some relevance to us here. Because it does put on its fire shield that has to be damaged through to make sure we can interrupt that Pyroblast. Because the Pyroblast does a near lethal amount of damage. Realistically, it probably kills you, but...
Especially
on Mythic, it
will kill you on Mythic.
Yeah.
So again, this could be a timing thing, depending where this happens in the fight. If we have to delay Avenging Wrath for a couple seconds, that might be an ideal situation. Maybe, maybe not, though. It is a pretty short, though. Pyroblast is only 8 seconds, so you have 8 seconds to break the shield. But everyone has hit the boss.
I don't remember it being like a particularly difficult DPS check, and I think it's something that happens quite a few times through the fight. So I don't think it'll be something specific to save cooldowns for.
Yeah, it's more of if it happens to be coming up when your cooldowns are coming up. Not you should worry about engineering your cooldowns to happen when it happens.
Yeah. But it's just sort of everyone in the raid swaps to it and you're good kind of thing.
Alright, some debuff stuff. Alright, so here's one of the things, is the team attack. So there's the Fire from the Mist. 3 adds will be summoned. These adds have a cloud around them. And you can't attack the add unless you're inside of the cloud. So what'll happen is like you'll kill them one by one, your entire group will, for the most part. One of the notes here is that the adds, apparently they had varying sized health pools on servers, so if that does happen on live, you'll want to kill the low health ones first. Because what the adds do, they do the explosion, which does a moderate burst of fire damage to all living players.
And that's going to be another movement issue on this fight for us. They're spread out throughout the fight, so you're going to have to really centralize yourself when this mechanic is about to go out. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself running a lot further than you should really need to.
All right, here's a fun one. The flash of hostility. At 60 energy, all players will be teleported to one side of the encounter space, while the bosses teleport to the far side. It says here that the location are set and do not change from pool to pool. So we get a maze.
Yes, and it's terrible and not fun. Yet another thing where our poor movement is going to show.
Yeah, so
Fortunately,
yeah.
this is the only fight in this raid where movement's really important. And luckily it's an early boss, so it's not a problem we're really gonna have to deal with a whole lot. But just
yeah,
keep
you can
that
just like
on
struggle
mind.
through it,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's not going to be fun, but it's early bosses. You can always just bring whatever kind of comp, and you can manage it. You're never gonna have issues just because you bring your red pally.
Yeah, and not only that, there is another mechanic on this fight that kind of offsets that mobility issue, and that's Blessing of Protection on the magma. And of course, the magma trap is fire damage, but it knocks somebody into the air high enough that the fall damage is sufficient to kill them. So there's a little trick you can utilize where if you bop them on their way down towards the ground after being launched into the air, they can actually run into another magma trap and soak that too and not be killed by subsequent fall damage. So you can actually clear effectively twice as much stuff if you have a bop ready for someone and you can throw it off at the right time, which could actually be really useful.
Yeah, so the maze, you want to get through the maze, there's a barrier. You gotta DPS the barrier down. Classes like warriors gonna leap over the maze and laugh at everybody. I'm going to assume that demon dowers can double jump over it and dash and stuff.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, probably.
We are probably not going to be able to bubble and run through this. That would make too much sense. Do any of you know?
I have no idea. I actually haven't tested it. I'm just looking at the mechanics and the timings of these. So like that's how I kind of figured the bop thing out. But apart from that, it's I can't really say for sure.
I did some testing. I don't remember if we got to this part of the fight in the testing that I did. So yeah, I don't remember at all.
Alright, so they're at 100 energy, they get a empowered form. The monk will morph into a jaded serpent. The mage will transform into a phoenix. So the monk will now do a dragon's breath ability and a cone. So dodge the cone. Again, just dodge stuff. That's the majority of rage is dodge stuff, kill the right target. You'll be good. With some movement thrown in.
There's also the multi-sided strike, right, on Mythic?
Yeah, we'll scroll down there in a second here.
Yeah, that just basically tests your granny react.
Alright, so heroic. So heroic will also get the spirit of whatever the hell that is. I don't even remember.
The little doggies that run around and chase you.
Spirit of Zwen.
Zwen with that. Alright, so yeah, like Bolus said, dogs that chase you. They said a player should avoid being in melee range of the ad as much as possible, so more movement. All DPS should switch and kill it, so again, this is a kill the right target kind of deal. Here's the multi-sided strike. Now summons 4 instead of 3 on heroic. There's going to be some magma traps on the ground.
That was the mechanic I was referring to earlier with Bop.
Yeah.
Flash of Hostility has been slightly adjusted on Heroic. So now there's only one vulnerable spot in the wall. Not an issue though. Apparently you can make more vulnerable if you want though, using Force Orbs, which are scattered throughout the maze. Not really important.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem for most people. It might be a mechanic worth worrying about in Mythic, though. It's hard to say.
But when they're empowered, the monk's Dragon Breath will now leave behind green crap on the ground. So don't walk in it. So Mythic. So the monk's multi-sided strike will target 15 members of the raid each time it is cast, and 5 visions will charge the players up from 4.
Yeah, so we just have to do tank mechanics, some mythic, basically.
Players need to identify which visions are targeting them and face each one in turn.
Yeah. And while this mechanic, of course, isn't specific to us, there's enough people up in the air at the same time that it's going to be really hard to make the distinction between which mob flashing is yours and someone else's if you're not careful.
Yeah, I
So
found
it's
that
something you really need to pay
just-
attention to.
Like, I hopefully they've changed it so that you just gonna see your own stuff and then get ported back down. But for some part of testing, it was really hard to figure out which ones are running at you and which ones are running at the guy.
Yeah, they could do the thing like with hunter pets where they're less visible to the non-hunter, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, see, that would be the smart thing to do, but I think they're kind of intentionally doing this just to frustrate people, because frustration means obviously you're having fun, right? You're experiencing some sort of emotion, so it must be good.
Yikes.
Yep, so now there's 2 doggos that want to kill you now instead of 1. And on Mythic, that you have to use the orbs now to open up a section to attack, because it'll be invulnerable by default.
On the maze?
Yeah. Well, let's see. Did I read it? All right. Yeah, none of the barriers will be attackable until players have used a Force Orb on all 4 sections.
Okay.
So basically, it's all of the cancer of heroic difficulty that you actually have to deal with that you couldn't otherwise.
And this is why I want at least 1 Paladin on the raid team, because we can't skip the maze. We have to grab an orb. Alright, but this is like the first 3 fights here. So after the first 3 bosses, it kind of splits into the Alliance and Horde encounters, depending on what you're doing. We have spent a little bit of time on this, probably enough, I would say, but this is an idea of what you can do. Like, you can go to the Wowhead pages here. You can read through the guides, try to look for things that are lethal, that are physical damage. You know, if it's physical damage, Bop can be used. If it's not physical damage, maybe Divine Shield can be used. But again, if it's like a major soaking mechanic, typically Divine Shield won't help with those, because it never does anymore. Look for other areas that are deadly, like on like Grong, or he claps you. You want to use your Shield of Vengeance to survive or do damage.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Just to add on that Grong point with the rampage, the frequency of these rampages is high enough that you can actually get out multiple Word of Glories per rampage. And Word of Glory, as most people already know that play Red, is actually insanely strong. And it's kind of hard to appreciate for most players that don't play Ret, but if you can utilize that on Grong, you can actually pump out a whole lot of extra raid healing. And because Word of Glory is a smart heal, you could actually be saving more people than you think. Yep. Especially on Mythic difficulty.
Also, things to look for, things that slow you down. Remember, we have Blessing of Freedom. Freedom will remove slows somewhat reliably. Reliably. Sounds wrong right now. I don't know why to me, but whatever.
Words, man.
So just remember what you have in your toolkit. You have bops, you have freedoms. Find ways that you can use them. Again, as you're doing the fight, like we can't really tell you should use X talent. You might find that during a fight, after some pulls, you might have to swap your talents. So definitely, one of the best things you can do in early progress is to be flexible. Try to identify opportunities where you can improve your play or change your play style that will benefit the raid. And you don't have to do it to be a DPS benefit to you. This is not for like a personal greed benefit. This is like you're starting these bosses. These bosses need to die. What do you have to do to? What is your part of this? What can you do to help? Not what can you do to parse.
Yes.
Yeah,
Even
and
though,
a lot of the time,
yeah, even though we covered the first 3 bosses here, the next 3, which is Opulence, Rastakhan, and I forget the last guy's name, the Conclave. These are fights that are actually really good for ret damage-wise, so you'll quickly find that like this is going to be your strong point this tier. But other than that, like these 3 fights are a pretty good introductory like breakdown on what you're going to expect. Like for the most part, these 3 fights are just the fights this tier where you might run into trouble because they're a little bit different than you might otherwise see. And of course, it's not worth covering the last 3 because nobody really knows how they're going to be handled yet. It's just too much of a wild card. It's one of those things where you're going to need to learn on your own at this point. It's just too
testing
early.
on most of those bosses was pretty broken. At least
Yeah,
with
it
Storm
looks
Blockade,
intense,
it
though.
really was.
Right. So it's just really not worth covering.
Yeah, we'll definitely have more information for you as the raid progresses. We'll have some information next week when Heroic's out, and the week after that, we'll have some early Mythic stuff for you. We'll have some more solidified Heroic stuff, and we'll do our best to keep you guys updated on that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of it is just using critical thinking as far as picking different talents for different fights. Like, when to use RV or when to maybe swap to Zeal, depending on how many targets you're expecting most of the fight. Like,
Yes.
whether you have a lot of downtime during fights where you might want to pick Crusades that you have burst when you're actually able to hit a boss, and then when you're not, you just sort of, it's slowly recharging for you to use back up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just like critical thinking of stuff like that, where you can really take advantage of how fights are different from each other, and how fights is different from just like patchwork.
Right.
Yeah, so some recent examples that we could use, like let's say for Fetid, early Fetid progress. If you were a Ret and Fetid, you were probably assigned to a small ad, and you might find that you could not reliably kill the small ad. So swapping your talent to execution sentence might have been a benefit for your raid to make sure that ad dies.
That was a legit option for that fight.
And we may see the same thing coming up with this tier because there are some rumblings of tuning how that could prop up some underperforming talents for us, which would be nice, but it would really change the dynamic and how you would approach these fights, especially on the first 3.
No, I guess what we can do now, we'll talk about some of the loot and things related to Battle for Dazar'alor in Season 2. So the biggest thing in Season 2 is that we now have that 5th ring, the Outer Ring, which has class Azurite traits. It has 2 for each spec, so 2 ret traits, 2 holy, 2 prot. We only care about ret, of course, so you'll have your choice of which ret class trait you want to use. And there is crap load of gear, because there's also the Residuum vendor.
Mm-hmm.
And the first few bosses in this raid drop Azurite gear as well. Like we have no shortage of Azurite gear.
Yes, and fortunately, and this is the big thing, the Azurite gear that you can get out of the raid is actually some of the best Azurite gear possible you can get. Like, for example, the Azerite chest off the first boss is so good that anything else in the raid or any other piece you can get outside in the world just doesn't even begin to compare. I believe it has Light's Decree and Treacherous Covenant, which is just poggers.
It's the breastplate of divine purification. For those of you that were not aware, that my guide is updated. I have updated the Sims to have the new class rings on them, so we can see here on the chest. We can see that the breastplate of divine purification is the top choice in this environment here.
Are we going to talk about Treacherous Covenant in some way? Okay.
We can talk about it now.
Yeah, we can talk about it now. My only gripe with Treacherous Covenant is there's some, well, while we haven't been able to test it fully yet, I don't think anybody's been able to test, the spell data seems to indicate that it's going to function like Will of the Necropolis does. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Will of the Necropolis, but it's a blood DK thing that reduces the damage they take below a certain threshold, and it adds retroactively to damage that would otherwise take you below that threshold. So, for example,
that's really bad.
Yes. Now that's why this trait's spooky, because there could be some mechanics that hit you that wouldn't kill you that actually would, should you have this trait. And there's some indication, though I'm not sure, nobody's sure, that 15% damage taken also stacks with subsequent traits. So instead of 50% damage taken, should you have 2, you'll take 30% extra damage, which is
that would not
very spooky. Yes.
That would make those somewhat near lethal abilities lethal, for sure.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Fortunately for us, though, with the ideal set of gear, which isn't actually hard to obtain for us at all, we only use one Treacherous Covenant, and that is on this piece. The other pieces we want to utilize, which I think are shoulders from the Conclave, and either the Opulence Helm or the Jaina Helm, which I believe, last I checked my numbers, were interchangeable.
Yeah, so
and they are... Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I have it up on the screen here. It's the Ridge Plate Pauldrons. They have Light, Degree, and RI.
And then there's the Jaina and Opulence Helm, which has Light's Decree and Imperium Power on both of them. And for all intents and purposes, they're the same helm. They're completely interchangeable. So getting the ideal Azerite pieces you want this tier is going to be extremely easy to do. Which also means that we may not have a whole lot of use for residuum. So you have that to look forward to. We're not like some classes where we need to save up 20,000 residuum to buy ideal pieces that they can't otherwise get. So we're very lucky this tier. Very, very lucky. Yeah. Unless, of course, they decide to turn around and nerf Light's Decree meaninglessly, which I have a feeling they might do because it's so strong with Crusade. But if you really look at Light's Decree from any other perspective, it's not that good.
Yeah, it all depends on what your perspective is and what you're focusing on. Like, if you look at Light's Decree and see that, wow, if you look at like the first rank of Light's Decree, it's incredibly strong. But as you add those additional ranks, it has the strength equivalent to other traits.
Yes.
So if you don't look at it in the right context, you'll think it's broken.
Mm-hmm. And it's not even that great if you're using talents like Divine Purpose, where Light's Decree doesn't even trigger a free ability. So it's actually not the right trait to use if you're not using Crusade, really. But with the way things are and the way things may be changing, it is the trait you're going to want to get because it's so generalized, and we will be using Crusade quite often. So even though you may feel the need to pursue something else, this is the best middle ground you can attain because it is quite a common trait.
I mean, burst damage is generally just more valuable than consistent damage.
Yes.
And the way that fight's usually designed. So, like, even all else being equal, you probably just want to keep using Crusade. Mm-hmm. Especially if you happen to have multiple Light's Decree traits.
Yeah, and just to talk a little bit more about Azerite. So, for Azerite that's dropping in Season 2, Old Gear will not have the new ring. So there's no point of trying to farm old gear expecting to have a new ring on that gear. It's not going to be there. And also one thing I have to adjust for is that world bosses that drop Azurite, that will not have the extra ring. But you'll see here I have included like this is an Azurite drop from world boss. I have to remove this because it's not actually going to have the extra outer ring they announced. Only gear that is eye level 370 or higher will have that new 5th ring, excluding old gear.
Right.
And also with the season 2, the world quest gear cap was going up to 385. So you'll see here there's some 385 Azurite pieces. The ones that only have 385 eye level are from world quest gear. You can identify those from there. We have the engineer goggles there because people want to know about it so much. The gear from the Warfronts, from the Darkshore Warfront, that's going from 385 to 400 item level, which you can see here from the yellow bar. And just to note is that the gear that does drop from the Warfront for Darkshore, the Alliance and Horde have their own traits, which I did not realize until the other day, which is quite ridiculous.
Yeah, and the Alliance traits are substantially worse than the Horde ones, which is kind of strange.
They are much worse.
Yeah, I don't even understand how that would happen, but okay, whatever.
They managed to do it again.
Yeah, they did the same thing with the Arathi traits, didn't they? Early on, and it took them quite some time to fix it, if I remember correctly. That's just that Horde bias showing through yet again.
Yep.
Hell yeah, dude.
Alright, so we just I swapped to my main page here, the main guide for Azurite. I've added the Azurite traits here. Not all of them have mentions. If there's something worth mentioning, it's there. It's important to note, or good to note, that the Azurite, the new traits that drop in Battle for Dazara lore are in Simcraft. And as far as I can tell, or we can tell, they definitely appear to be working properly. So that's Treacherous Covenant, which we can see here is right below Light's Decree. There's also Seductive Power, which is a little bit further down here.
Yeah, and that's just terrible, but I have a feeling that one's getting substantially buffed.
Yeah,
Only because of what it requires you to do to gain benefit, which as a Ret Paladin, it's not something you're going to want to do once you learn what it really is that you have to do.
Yeah, I've also added
wandering random places.
A Seductive Power 10%, which just means there's a 10% chance that you don't approach Bwonsamdi. So the way this this Azurite works is a little Bwonsamdi Spirit Vigil will spawn, and if you move close to him, you will gain a buff to all stats for 5 minutes, which is great. It'll stack up to 5 times, but if for some reason you fail to approach him, you will instead lose 1 stack.
And that could happen very often because it looks like Bwonsamdi could spawn up to 25 to 30 yards away, and that could just be way too disruptive. It's not like the Shrine of the Storm.
That's really far.
Yeah, so it's pretty cancerous.
Yeah, and the third trait is Bonded Souls, which I'm wondering if this is actually meant to stack. I really don't know. This is where it says that your spells and abilities have a chance to trigger a soulbound for 15 seconds. During soulbound, every 5 seconds, you and your nearest ally are both healed for 3,456 and gain 141 haste for 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Like, are you suggesting that it could stack up to like 10 if it reprocced early?
I'm like wondering, does it refresh itself? Is it always 141 haste? Or every 5 seconds is it going to go 141, then 282, and increase like that?
Oh no, yes, it will do that, but I'm just curious if it caps out at like 3 or something. Because if it reprocs early, then you could get a huge amount of haste from this.
Yeah, you could.
And I don't think the sim is accounting for that.
And I don't think it is either. Like, this one's like kind of up in the air a bit. I
don't think anybody can test these traits unless...
No, the They have the
Yeah, not
trinkets
as
on
far
the
as I know.
vendor, but they don't have the Azurite on the vendor for whatever reason on the BTR.
That's spooky, dude. I knew about Treacherous Covenant, but I just didn't know about this one, which is kind of.
Yeah.
And also, I removed the Uldir traits here, so there's no Rejuvenation Array, no Laser Matrix, no Arc of the Titans.
Thank
they are now
God.
useless. Or will be useless in a week, for the most part.
So boring traits. I'm glad we have something a bit more interesting coming.
And also under Azurite here, I have this Azurite trait talent flat combination setting. I'm just going to bring up here. Again, so some talents have better gains with traits than others, like when you run Blade of Wrath, X-Berg is a lot better. Divine Judgment, Indomitable Justice gets better. Also, just execute range. So one thing you'll see here at execute range is that Seductive Power is now much higher. That's because I have it set when the fight starts that Seductive Power will already be at 5 stacks. So if a fight has an execute phase, that's very important, such as how Gahoon was. You could see how it performs there. And also raid bots now, they do have their own option for execute style sims, so you can do that very easily yourself.
Mm-hmm. And this is going to be important because there is speculation and good reason to believe that talents like Divine Judgment are going to get substantially buffed to a point at which it's actually worth using against like Wake of Ashes and And this is important because of the way Divine Judgment interacts with Indomitable Justice. Should it get buffed by the rate we suspect it will, then Indomitable Justice will actually be comparable to Divine Right? Not Divine Right. Light's Decree in a lot of ways. So it could be a trait you really want to get. Should things go the way we think they might.
I feel like there's a lot of Indomitable Justice on raid pieces as well.
Yes. In fact, there is Indomitable Justice on that chest we really want off of the first boss that has Covenant and Light's Decree. Which is actually just hilarious because that chest is literally everything we need. Or has everything we need, rather.
Again, Wildhead has their Azurite Power Finder just under their Azurite menu here. Choose Paladin, choose Ret, choose your Indomitable Justice. And you can see the pieces here. A lot of PvP gear. You can go through it. You can specify a bit more too if you want to see other traits. But that's something you can do. So trinkets. So trinkets, right now, there's only one trinket for us that's in Simcraft, and that is the Everchill Anchor. And its first implementation in SimC had some issues that weren't intentional. What was happening when the anchor was proccing again, it was causing the damage to hit, even though it was flagged not to hit, so it was doubling the amount of damage it should have been doing, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
But that is now since fixed, so Everchill Anchor does work properly. It's from Trinket. It's not off the charts there anymore. It's a little bit lower down, but again, it's a very accessible trinket. It's very good. There's no RNG to it. It just stacks, and it stays stacked. And it has a slow.
Yes, and that trinket could be very useful in Mythic Plus, depending on how fast you could stack it. I mean, there's a rate at which you can stack it anyway. I think it's like you can't have more than one application per second, so it's not like stupid for Fury Warriors and shit like that. But it could be really useful for like kiting and stuff. Generally, it's just a very useful trinket to have.
Yeah, the second trinket, like there's 3 trinkets from the raid. That second one is the Rampaging Amplitude Gigavolt Engine, also known as the Rage. Rage is not yet implemented in Simcraft. That's something that I think we should expect it by this weekend, probably. I gave some logs today. So the way this trinket works, as you can see here, increases your haste by 70, or haste by X amount and speed by X amount, stacking up to 15 times over 10 seconds. The stacks increase faster and faster as the engine accelerates. The engine runs for a total of 18 seconds. And the way it actually works is that it gets to 15 stacks in actually 9.5 seconds, so a half a second earlier. So you'll have 8.5 seconds of full power of the trinket. And again, usage, same as any other minute-and-a-half trinket right now, is you want to use it with your wings. If you're using Crusade, you want to make sure you either have max stacks of Crusade or Crusade has 18 seconds left.
Actually, I don't know if that's quite true or
That
not
might
at this
not be.
point.
Yeah, I didn't think it applied to it anymore.
Yeah, there was a buff the other day. It was like buffed by 30% or something like that. And if we factor that into how Crusade actually works and the way it stacks, it might actually just be beneficial to pop it with Crusade at the start, which is unintuitive for Crusade, but it would work.
If that turns out to be the case, so I'll have this updated. I'll have a note here about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the other trinket we have here is Grong's Primal Rage. Enter a Primal Rage, dealing physical damage split among nearby enemies over 4 seconds. Deals increased damage when striking multiple targets. You cannot move or use abilities during your rage. So this is also not implemented. This is like Draft of Souls. So
which means you don't want it from the onset.
Yeah. All right. So like I said, it's kind of a weird channel. There's no channel bar on your screen when you use this ability, but you can cancel the buff early. So if you need to cancel the buff to not die, you need to do that. It's important. But also, while you're using it, you will continue to auto-attack during this cast, for some reason. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not, but you can. And also important to note that this trinket does also benefit from haste. It'll always last 4 seconds, but you will get more attacks inside that 4-second window, and you can also get a partial tick as well. So it might not be as completely bad as we expect it to be, but I wouldn't expect it to be amazing. Because as you can see right now, both those trinkets are all the way down here because they are not implemented yet. Realistically, the Rage will probably be up by the anchor.
The which Rage?
The
Rage.
Yeah. I really love that they named 2 trinkets that can both be abbreviated to Rage. It really makes it very easy to figure out.
Grong is a wild card. We'll have to see what happens, really.
Yeah, I'm not expecting miracles out of that trinket.
Yeah, but either way with Grong, it's something that you'll want to use outside of your cooldowns, because you don't want to lose 4 seconds of Crusade and Life Decree and all that. It's not worth it.
Yeah, and not only using it outside of your cooldowns, there's another kind of level of depth there where you're actually not going to want to use it if Blade of Justice and Judgment are off cooldown. So it's something you really need to pay attention to when you're using it.
Yeah. It's not going to be a pop on stage, it's going to be a pop at an appropriate downtime moment.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that it lasts a static 4 seconds is actually really bad for us because that negatively impacts the haste, despite the fact that it is getting extra ticks. Like if the duration scaled with haste and actually just got shorter, but you dealt the same amount of damage, that would be more workable. But the fact that it doesn't is just not worth it. It's like doubly bad for us.
Yeah, because we are a cooldown based class. All of our abilities have cooldowns on them, so
yes,
that's why it hurts us a lot.
Yes, it's not like we're rogues where we can dump all of our energy and just click that and wait.
There's also 2 new trinkets added in 8.1 to World Quest, and what were they? One was the Ritual of Feather of whatever this guy's name is, Ung Ak, where it's a 1-minute cooldown with a Mastery buff. And the second trinket was also the Ancient Tuskar Sea Charm. So again, it has a proc to increase your versatility. So because those are world quests, you can have them drop up to 385 by default.
Mm-hmm. I think those are actually contained within the Tortolan Traders cache. They're not a reward on their own.
I'm not sure if it's specified.
But yeah, because those ones are definitely got to go up to 385. I didn't think that normal world quest items went up that high.
They go
they can Titan Forge, but I mean like just base.
Yeah. Yeah, they're actually occasionally the Tortolan Emissary will have a trader's cache as a reward, and that's 385, and it has a chance of containing the trinkets.
Yeah, both the comments are saying Tortolan, so possibly from your Tortola and emissary, you could possibly get these. Apparently, over the years, they've actually collected something useful finally.
Though, if we're being real, out of all these options, your best trinket options are not going to come from PvE. I mean, obviously, you're going to get the Everchill Anchor. You want that, but if you really want your best other trinket, you're going to have to start PvPing and getting the on-use first trinket.
As you can see, Season 2 is now Sinister instead of Dread. And Sinister Gladiator and Sinister Aspirant are interchangeable. They're just different names. They do the same thing.
Yeah.
Another option is also to just get the Alchemy Trinket. It's has a bit of verse and on
Yeah, I have the Alchemy Trinket down here. So at 415, it's still not super impressive looking. It'll look a bit better in your own sims because you'll have another trinket, but it is an option.
Mm-hmm.
Just depends what you want to spend your Breath of Bonsomdi on.
Yeah. Speaking of professions, I can't imagine we want to use alchemy, actually. Wouldn't it be more appropriate to use like blacksmithing and jewel crafting?
Yeah, I think those are probably the most likely two to use. It just depends. If you happen to get very lucky and get a belt and pants that are relatively high eye level, it might be worth more for you personally to have alchemy jewel crafting instead. But I think jewel crafting is definitely something we'll want. Just like that ring is, even like late in fight, you'll still want to use that ring.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that socket's just way too good.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just covering your bases, really. Like, that's 3 items from those 2 professions. You know, it seems pretty logical that that's something you might want to do from the onset. But it's hard to say. Depends on your luck, really. And I mean, it's not like it's hard to level another profession if you really need to, should you get a bad luck the first week. But I don't think it's going to be very many players meta-gaming like that. But it's worth to keep in mind, I think.
Yep. So just as another note, I have 385 is the base eye level I have here, but I did leave Fathoms in play here, which is only 355. And also I left a few early levels of the B, so 350, 365, 375. It's not very common to see Bs above 375, but if you happen to be extremely rich and find one, have fun.
Jesus, that's huge. Is these stack ranks are using Crusade, aren't they?
They are.
Okay, that makes sense then. I was like, why is B that high up there? But that means I might not be dropping my 375 socket one, which might feel pretty bad, but whatever.
Yeah, it's a very strong trinket still. It wipes the floor with a lot of 385s, as you can see at 350.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus. And if that holy power change actually happens, the one we've been bugging them about, then perhaps Divine Purpose and Imperium Power will refresh the duration of Bygone B like it does for Relentless Inquisitor and other related effects.
Yeah, in case you missed the update on that, Blizzard has no clue on how they want to handle holy power spenders that are free. So previously, like Imperium Power and Divine Purpose, they were not giving any stacks of Crusade or Relentless Inquisitor. But then they pushed out a hot fix on the 19th of December where Imperium Power procs and Divine Purpose procs will now grant stacks of Crusade and Relentless Inquisitor. But as you can see here, it doesn't extend for Bs. Also, as mentioned earlier by Souls, like these free spenders, they don't proc Light's Decree, unfortunately.
Which is totally unintuitive. Doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's
because it
worded
cares about how much holy power you spend, right? Rather than casting a holy power spell.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you look at it from a logical standpoint, comparing the talents for which Light's Decree is strong and for those it isn't, it doesn't actually make any sense that Divine Purpose not proc it when there's another talent that it benefits way more, that it would affect Divine Purpose in any way. Like, for example, Light's Decree's impact on Crusade is going to be way more than Divine Purpose would ever get out of it. should it proc? Which doesn't make any sense. Like, why doesn't it? I mean, and it's not even following the logic for, as you said, Relentless Inquisitor and Crusades. So, what's the deal? It's just one of those things where the game directs you in one direction and is giving you contradictory information, leading you to a spot where you're not really quite sure how to approach a problem, which isn't exactly something you want in a video game.
Yep. Yeah, but whenever I update my guide, there's an updates button here, there's updates here, and also if you look at the pins and rec questions, I do have a pin there, and I update things in that pin as these things change. But we do have our log review. So for this log review, our winner is actually Alliance Prot. Are you still watching, Wooly? If you're out there.
Congrats, Wooly.
Oh yeah, he's there. Alright, so for Wooly gave us a handful of fights to look at, and we chose to go over his Mithrax mythical log. So for those that don't know, Wooly is a Prot main. He plays Prot, but he was playing Ret this week. So we got some Ret logs. And because he is Prot, some of his Azurite traits, like Azurite Veins here and Crystalline Carapace, are Prot traits. They are not DPS traits. So he's missing a couple of DPS traits. And also,
basically, we haven't even started, and he's just fucked up unbelievably.
Yeah. Wooly, what are you doing? And he does not have Life's Decree. He only has Imperium Power and Blightborn Fusion and Archive for his Re-Origination Array.
It's not the worst ones you could pick, but yeah.
Still pretty monk-a-fucking ass.
And for talents, we were running Righteous Verdict, Blade of Wrath, Wake of Ashes, and Divine Purpose. Alright, so we'll go to his opener here first. So cast Timeline, or opener. So on Mithrax, for those if you're not aware or forgot, that's one where you jump down the hole after Zul and attack him. So we can see here, he jumped down the hole. He built to 5 Holy Power, which usually building to 5 Holy Power is not, you probably shouldn't do it. But on Mithrax, it's okay, because on Mithrax, at the very start of the fight, he will cast Imminent Ruin. And by the time you've built 5 Holy Power, that cast will go out, so you know whether you have to run out or not. So you know if you can use your wings. But he did use his trinket, and then he used his wings. So
I don't know.
Yeah, you definitely want to save your trinket. Like, this is the Jess Howler trinket. You would want to save this for your first GCD, which was a Divine Storm here in this case from Imperium Power. But looking at his other fights, though, he does build to 5 a lot, so he kind of got lucky here. So typically, your opener will usually be Blade, Judgment, and then Wings when you're not using Inquisition. His opener actually benefited him here, intentional or not.
Yeah, I can't actually nitpick the opener here a whole lot, given that it's Mithrax and the fight opens in a really strange way.
Yeah. We also make use of the WoW Analyzer here because it makes our lives so much easier on analyzing some things. So we're on the cooldowns here. We can see when the cooldowns were used. It was used at 5 seconds, at 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And we can see there was a long delay here. He didn't use his cooldowns again until 5:23. So his third wings was super delayed. And because he delayed his third set of wings for so long, he only got a few GCTs out of his last set of wings because the boss died. Now, if I remember right, he was holding this for the ads, which maybe in some scenarios, like depending on how your guild's doing it, you can do a cheese parse that way, but for general practice, you wouldn't try to do that for your third set of wings. Unless your guild's very slow at getting through the fight.
Which isn't a bad thing to do. It's just
Yeah.
ideally you don't want to do it. You shouldn't need to. I mean, if you need to, then there's problems elsewhere. But it's good that he did. You can't complain there.
So we'll also jump to the timeline here. So he had his pre-pot. He had his food and all that stuff. That was all good. But because that last wings was cut off there, he had to use his second potion outside of wings. And he didn't get the full duration out of it either. So he kind of cucked himself a bit there. Ideally, like in most guilds, they will use their bloodlust in the last phase, and that's where you'll use your wings in your pot. Some other things to note here on his usage of wake. We had wake used first time. Second time, a little bit of a delay there, but not. I mean, it overall does hurt a little bit to delay it so long. So again, we got some larger periods of delay with wake there. But this is the most egregious one. He uses wake right here. And then the amount of time that actually passed by not using wake, which he's trying to save for the ads, he actually could have used wake there, and it would have been back already for the ads. So he lost at least one cast of wake by holding it for too long.
And this is the big thing with Wake of Ashes is if you're not sure if you can hold something, then just don't use wake. Just use consecration instead. They're close enough together in actual performance for most scenarios that if you're sure you can't game Wake of Ashes, then just don't use it.
For Mithrax, I think wake is a lot higher value just because the upfront damage is really, really valuable for the ad phase if you're trying to pass on those. But yeah, that's definitely some useful advice. Like consecration is not actually a bad option at all right now.
Yeah, people will use consecration, but it's not bad. It wasn't that bad before the buff, and it's definitely not that bad now.
Yeah, it actually seems high for me. I don't know about you guys, but it's
not for me yet.
By like a pretty decent amount, it seems high.
Yeah, that's going to vary depending on your gear and what you have in other slots.
Yeah,
especially your haste rating, what talent you're using. And it's hard to really say, and this is kind of going back to the whole Boda topic with like what talents you're going to use on bosses. There's actually quite a few fights in that instance where Wake of Ashes traditionally isn't inordinately strong, like we would see on some fights. So you could actually use Consecration to greater benefit on fights like Rastakhan.
That one might have a lot of movement, though, is the issue with Consecration.
There's potential for it, yeah, but it really depends on how well things are being positioned and when you're actually throwing down the Consecration.
Yep. And a few other things here we can see. We see a lot of double Crusader Strikes back to back. In 99% of the cases, you shouldn't be using Crusader Strike back to back. In most of these cases, he was able to use a Holy Power Spender instead. And the main reason that we don't use it back to back, one, it's a very low value spell. It gives us Holy Power. But because it is a charge system, only one charge will recharge at a time. So that's why we always have one recharging, and not just both used up at the same time.
As a general rule, you don't actually want to cast Crusader Strike back to back because it can interfere with upcoming GCDs from Blade of Justice and Judgment, and because you don't want to overcap your Holy Powers, or generated rather.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot finer point. If you want to know more about that, you can go to. I know I have it on my guide. But here's like there's the further considerations. It'll tell you about that. Like if you're like also works for Consecration. When using Consecration at 3 HP, make sure Blade of Justice is on CD for 2 or more GCDs. Consecration will take 1 GCD, and your next Spender will take 1 GCD. So that's the logic behind it, kind of deal, and just repeats. But that's really nitpicky stuff there. If you want to look into that, that's what the section is for. If you want the basics, you got the basics there. If you're ready to move on to the next level, you got some more stuff here you can try to manage. All right, one other thing in the rotation that's happening a lot, there is a lot of cases where Judgment is being prioritized over Blade.
And you can see how he kind of got into a rut of where, because he had prioritized it the first time, every subsequent time where Judgment and Blade of Justice come off cooldown, they're going to line up, which can cause quite large losses over the course of a fight if you continue to get yourself in that trap.
Yeah, because the way it works is that Judgment will take 7 globals to recharge. Blade will take 6. So if you use Judgment first, your global goes down, and then you use Blade. They're both coming off cooldown in 6 globals, unless you get lucky with a proc from Blade or Art of War. So you're trying to avoid that cooldown clash.
And yeah, like Wooly said, trying to prioritize Judgment ahead of Blade if you have a DP proc. That is something you can do, but generally it's kind of misleading because it's not always a gain. Like if you know you're not going to get a subsequent hit off on that mob, like say it's going to die early, then throwing off a Judgment before Blade of Justice for the DP proc is actually a lot more beneficial than usual. But otherwise, other than that, it's not really something you want to do if you can help it.
Yeah. We'll move on to our holy power usage here next. So we got some waste here. We got one that got clipped off from a Judgment. So in that case, I'd have been a scenario where you would have built instead with like Judgment if it was available, possibly Crusader Strike, depending on what the scenario was, but you never want to overcap with Blade. We also had 4 overcapped from Crusader Strike. Crusader Strike, you definitely don't want to overcap on. It's already a very low value spell, and if you're using that global on Crusader Strike instead of Templar's Verdict, you are losing a lot of damage there. So maybe make your holy power tracker a bit larger. Same for Judgment. Judgment also generates 1. There was 3 of them that were over there. And just on Wake, there was 1 from Wake, but that's fine in most cases, and it was fine here. Just as regular spenders, gotta pay a bit more attention there.
Looking at his log, I think the holy power wastage, at least on Judgment on one of the Crusader Strikes, was during a time when the boss was phasing. So it looks like he was trying to save holy power to use with wings on the ad once it spawned in the intermission.
Yeah, a common thing to do is in the intermission, like you'll walk up to the boss and smack him to build your holy power, then you'll walk over to the rock and wait for the ad. That's one thing people do. And the only other thing is we had 2 casts of Shield of Vengeance, and they were both pretty much fully consumed. But this is a fight where you can use Shield of Vengeance for just in terms of DPSG a lot more frequently. Like when people get imminent ruin when they both go off, that can pretty reliably break the shield. Also, when people are getting knocked out of orbs, that's an opportunity to use your shield beforehand, because when someone gets knocked out of the orb, it does damage. There is a lot of time there to actually pop that shield. So maybe 1 or 2 more times could have been used up. But overall, for being a prop main, then switching over here, there's plenty of things he did well. Most of his Judgments were consumed. His downtime was fairly appropriate for the fight. He was using Righteous Verdict, and he got a lot of benefit from Righteous Verdict. We had 78% buff cast and 3.9% damage, which is good. So for kind of being a tank that went pseudo DPS for this fight, overall he did pretty good.
Good job, Willie.
But that was our log here. Well, pseudo DPS because you had 2 tank Azurite traits. and you don't have Light's Decree. So you're a pseudo DPS.
Yeah, you didn't do that bad either, so that's
Like, if
okay.
you had Light's Decree, when you pop it on those ads, your damage would have been a lot higher.
Yeah, that's like insane pad you can do.
Oh, it's absolutely fucking ridiculous the amount of damage you can do there.
Especially if you get like 2 EP procs.
Yeah, I mean, there are some points, like especially when I parsed on that, I had more procs than I knew what to do with before I could get all of them off before we actually had to move again.
Yeah.
It actually feels kind of bad when
Yeah,
you're
it
just
is.
swimming in these procs and can't really do anything about it. Just
You gotta
bait.
hope that someone was slightly off to the right, so like the being is made it further, so you can walk up to the edge of it and still hit them with Divine Storm. If you get lucky.
Yeah. That's hard to game though.
Yeah.
Trying to get everybody on the same page to do that. I mean, most people can barely fucking coordinate as a team in the first place, so trying to get somebody to do something for you is just not going to happen. Or a group to do something for you, for that matter.
All right, and that was our log here. I know we had one more little bonus topic I think we wanted to go over.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, bonus topic.
I'm gonna leave that one to you if you want to go over it.
Okay, well, I'm not going to go too in depth, but relatively recently, Blizzard had approached us and had asked us to collect 3 questions that we thought were most pertinent that the devs would collectively answer. Regardless of what happens, the devs will see these questions, but there's a good possibility, in fact, I think this is the outright intent of them taking these questions, is to answer them publicly. So what we decided to do, whoops, I don't want to do that. But what we decided to do was to compile 3 questions, one surrounding mobility, one surrounding talent balance, and another surrounding utility. And the focus on the mobility question was to highlight the problems that Divine Steed brings us and suggesting an alternative that would kind of bring back a middle ground that we otherwise lack because all our mobility options are nested on Divine Steed. The utility question was actually highlighting the strength of Ret utility, but because of the way in which it functions, it's not necessarily something that comes to the foreground when people think of useful utility in a group setting. You know, most people want to, when they're thinking of utility in a group setting, they want to check all the meta boxes that would include damage output, and that's not something we bring. Our utility is inherently dependent on defensive reaction, right? And that's not something players really think about on the onset. So we kind of highlighted the idea that it would be nice if we have some offensive utility brought back in that befits a jack of all trades spec that other people can appreciate from the onset, that isn't otherwise something that we would need to use in a situation that players don't necessarily think of right away. And then the last question was talent balance, and this is why we talked about Divine Judgment earlier and its possible buffs. Basically, we just highlighted 3 different talent problems. One was Justicar's Vengeance. Obviously, that talent's terrible and has remained terrible forever. Divine Judgment has its problems because it just doesn't compete, and Righteous Verdict and Zeal and Execution Sentence, and the problems on that tier due to patch 8.1's Divine Storm buff, which kind of leaves Righteous Verdict and Execution Sentence out to dry. But other than that, that's what we've suggested to them, and we kind of figured it'd be a good idea to let you guys in on that information so you're not totally surprised when it happens. But hopefully those questions are something most players can hold as valuable. We couldn't really see any others that would be more pertinent, but hopefully that strikes the right chord with most people.
Yeah, I definitely think that addresses most of the issues that we have with
Yeah, that's the hope. Like, I know some people aren't going to be pleased with it. Like, it's hard it's hard to really collect PvP questions because we don't have a whole lot of PvPers. So that's kind of why we opted for the mobility question, because that's something they can obviously hold as valuable.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
apart from that, it's hard.
I think they would also definitely rather have Divine Steed off GCD for PvP. I think
Yeah.
that would be pretty big for them as well.
Yeah, and that's not something I think they'd ever do, because I think part of the design behind Divine Steed is using it strategically. So you combine the GCD with the really short duration, and it kind of creates this ability where you really need to know when you want to use it and how you want to use it.
Look, even if it was just fucking quarter GCD, I'd be happy with that. It's just frustrating when you play other specs and every other spec you play has mobility off the GCD, and then you go back to playing Ret and you're like, oh, I guess they have to.
Yeah, the most important example I could think of where you had to know when to use your steed was on Mistress back in Tomb of Sargeras, when that giant wave was crashing through the middle. If you were in the middle of that wave and you did not have Divine Steed or a bunch of speed on your gear, you were dead.
Yep.
Yeah, you were going to die. And that's kind of what we're hoping the suggestion in Long Arm of the Law solves. Like, obviously it'd be a lot weaker in terms of strength from moving from point A to point B, but at least it's a small movement boost for a short duration that's off the GCD that's tied to a damage dealing ability, right?
Yeah.
So at least we get something in that department that isn't completely contingent on Divine Steed, which is kind of a bad thing given the bugs that it has, and it's the only way we can really move. It's just terrible, really.
Yeah, like a similar situation was Wraithwalk for DKs and Legion. They eventually complained enough where it actually turned into a Wraithwalk instead of a Wraith float that was bugged. But now we have now it's our turn to rage a bit because we have our Divine Steed, which if you get stuck, if you clip environment with Divine Steed, you lose it, and it's horrible.
Yes. And that's part of the problem is you need to be so sure that you need to use it and you're not going to run into any problems when you do use it, which means it's adding a little bit of depth to a mobility problem that we don't necessarily need, which is why there should be an alternative there. And I mean, DKs did get Death's Advance back, right?
They have it now, yeah.
They have it now,
that's their baseline, and Wraithwalk is their talent.
The talent, okay. Does Wraithwalk replace it?
No, they have both.
They have both. Okay, so
must be nice to have
the precedent's already there to have different mobility options. One baseline.
Exactly. See, I didn't even know that. That just actually just works out from an argumentative standpoint. There's even less reason for them to try and resist such a change.
Just on the topic of the utility section real quick, I think one of the things with the Jack of all trades, we have a lot of utility that can be useful in situations, but I think one of the issues is Holy Paladins and Prot Paladins basically bring everything apart from Wisdom that we bring to the table for fights, and a lot of guilds will just bring a Holy Paladin anyway. And
that's exactly,
the way that fights are designed these days, there's not a lot of physical damage, and they tend to be very reluctant to have slows on people like that we can freedom that will actually the whole buff will disappear when we freedom. They'll just the slow component will go away when freedom's on someone. So there's a lot of issues for as far as them designing the fights and then not adjusting our toolkit to deal with how they change their fight design philosophy.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't really matter how much utility you have and how useful it could be if they just design the fight from the onset to not really be able to counter those things. Yeah, it's just like a non-starter.
Yeah. You remember on Coven, you could freedom the tank debuff, but I don't think there's been any kind of effect like that will actually disappear. Like on even the stuff on Zekvoz, when the little critters slow you down, if you freedom, you'll still have like the dot on you. I'm pretty sure. You can move, but you still will be taking damage the entire time.
You can also use bot to remove the dot and the slow at the same time.
That's true. But yeah, I don't know. It's just frustrating having all of the stuff that we should be able to bring to the table then go, oh, we don't actually want people to be able to remove this effect in this fight. We'll just screw people instead.
But that Zekvaz example is how you would intuitively expect that to function. Like, you don't want to negate the effect itself, you just want to negate the movement, which is what Freedom is trying to do.
It's a physical effect, yeah.
And I think all too often when they're designing these fights and these mechanics that they approach it from that perspective. Well, could Blessing of Freedom dispel this? And they go, yeah, it probably could. And they just make it immune to Blessing of Freedom. What they really should do is just break down that spell data when they're actually designing the spell itself to have the movement and the actual effect of the spell itself independent of each other, so we can actually utilize that more often and bring to the forefront some meaningful use to this utility that we have that otherwise doesn't get used. It's just a design problem for the most part in almost every situation that they're just not choosing to do, either because they're lazy or they're not thinking about the problem correctly or just not considering the class.
I think it's definitely more of the not considering the class.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just my quick gripe.
No, that's fair. It's something that needs to be discussed, especially in front of them, I think, because I don't think they're particularly aware of it. Like, they do argue that we have a ton of utility, but it's like, well, it doesn't really matter if it never gets used.
Or in the event, let's say it's finally used, if it's on, it'll end up being used on a boss that's not too important or too beneficial. It's like, sure, it's a nice little added flair if you have a Paladin there, but you can do it without Paladin, it's fine.
Mm-hmm. And you look at other class utility, like Warriors, for example, they bring the best offensive melee buff in the game, and they bring the best defensive buff in the game through Rallying Cry. So and those are effects that are used on every single fight effectively. Whereas Paladin utility, we've got a lot of it, but most fights, you'll never really use those abilities, which is just absolutely sad.
And Demons have the same thing too.
Mm-hmm.
They have their darkness and they have their debuff. And
to be fair, darkness wasn't very good in the last tier, but generally it is quite a strong raid cooldown option.
Oh yeah, even if it prevents damage on like 2 people, that's a huge strain off the healers.
Yeah.
And what Warriors and Demons both have in common is that they have great mobility.
Mm-hmm. So it's just a complete disconnect between reality and what they actually see on paper. Like, on paper, our utility looks great, but in reality, there's like just no real correlation between us and somebody else who brings these types of buffs. It's actually quite sad, really. I don't have a whole lot of positive things to say about it.
At least we can heal pretty well. Our heals are very strong. That's one positive thing.
Well, we've got Word of Glory, sure, but I mean, even that's constrained in how useful it can be.
Yeah, it also falls in the category of, like, if you happen to be in a situation you can use it, that's great, but for every time you can do that, there's so many other groups where they don't even consider that an option because they don't need it. It's just not required. Or even
it's a lot more skill intensive to like press it at the right time, or like make sure you have Holy Power if you think that you need it, than just pressing Rallying Cry when your raid leader calls for it or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if we have any questions that pop up in chat here, we'll give everyone a few minutes for some questions. But I think we've covered what we wanted to cover pretty well today.
Mm-hmm. In any case, I'm pretty sure Rhett Questions chat is going to get slammed over the next week.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I'm contemplating just muting it.
Probably your best option.
I'm getting pretty glad that I have the excuse of, I'm running heroic splits every day to not answer any questions.
Yeah. We're going to be too busy. It's kind of the perfect storm, really, but oh well.
Could be. Ret fac. Sim yourself. Ret fac. Sim yourself. Ret fac. Sim yourself. No, you were not supposed to get the 5th ring on your gear. No, old gear is not going to drop a 5th ring on new gear.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting shitstorm once people figure out that Altair gear is just obsolete. Which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because not all players are going to jump from Altair to battle.
Well, that
Just
reminds
strange.
me that like they're all about making some content like super relevant, like world quest rewards. They keep scaling it, right? Mythic plus dungeons, they get harder, they get better loot. And then there's world bosses. They get left in the
Yeah,
dust. So world bosses, like for trinkets, sure, they could Titan Forge, and it could be useful, but that's really rare. But at the same time, they drop Azurite. Because that Azurite isn't 370, it's only 355. It's entirely useless next week. So,
Right.
so they choose
It
to
doesn't
leave
make any
this
sense
piece of
to me.
content irrelevant rather than buffing it to either 370 at least, just so it has a ring, or maybe 385 because it's the same eye level as normal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that would be a massive power spike or imbalance. I think it would be appropriate.
It absolutely would not be. There's no way it is. The only thing it does is complement the content you're buffing already. I mean, it's not like world bosses are medium independent of what's already there. They're inherently a part of it. It doesn't make any sense to me. But just Blizzard things.
it can still be worth running Altair for Azurite to scrap, though, at least. Get that sweet 35 residuum per.
Yeah, that might be a thing, actually. But given that it doesn't have an extra ring, I'm kind of thinking they might just remove the residuum
Oh,
gained
God.
from all your gear
Actually,
scrap. Just
I would not
remove
complain
the
about
incent-
that. That'd be really nice. You
I
wouldn't
hope
have to
they
run
do
Mythic
that
Plus.
so I can watch Jet rage on Twitter.
Yeah, no, I think people would like that. Like, no one wants to run, 3 or 4 Mythic
Yeah.
Altair splits in Heroic Week. Like, no guild actually wants to do that, but we're going to have to.
Right.
It's too big of an increase. Like, giving someone or a couple of people, 100 extra residuum is too big an increase.
Mm-hmm. No, mind you, actually, that's something they should probably do, just to remove that incentive.
I hope they do, yeah.
But I feel like that's something they might overlook. I don't feel like they even really thought about the costs of what these residuum caches are going to be. Like there's such a cost difference between purchasing a 385, a 400, and a 415 that spending your residuum.
Oh, did we lose you?
Yeah, you cut out.
Am I DCing?
Maybe.
You cut out after saying spending your residuum.
Oh, strange. But yeah, spending your residuum on anything other than a 415 is just a massive trap because of what it actually gets you. Like the 415 cost isn't actually commensurate with what the 400 and 385 costs in a linear fashion, and what you actually get for scrapping them. So it's actually just a huge trap to buy 400s. Which is kind of a
Unless
shame.
you're doing splits and you want to trade people 400 eye level Azurite from.
Yeah.
That's like the one situation that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
Which, I mean, of course, how many people is that going to affect, too?
I want to
Basically,
know where
no.
they got the pricing of their specific piece, because that's just an astronomical price compared to the random. The fact that you can buy 3 random pieces and still not have spent as much as buying one specific is kind of odd to me, but
I think it's the same ratio as it is currently for specific to random.
well, I haven't
But
looked
it
at the
is.
vendor because it's pointless until looking at until next week.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. But it's a really high cost. It's like 10 weeks of Mythic Plus or something to be able to buy one piece.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot higher
Fortunately,
than I
the raid
expected.
is so rewarding.
Well, I'm not seeing any questions come up in chat, so I guess we can go ahead and close out here. So we do have our schedule in the chat there. We are finally having a prot stream again. Our second prot stream will be Saturday next week on the 26th. So if any of you are interested in prot, we will have that stream going, finally. So make sure to write down all your questions that you want to ask Wooly. Make him sweat a bit. And I'll have the giveaway up for the prot log review, so if you need some prot logs looked at, definitely enter into that. Just as a reminder, I can't do the anonymous logs anymore. The add-on I was using to replace names broke, and I am not going to inspect element every single thing and changes. You can't be anonymous anymore, I'm sorry.
That's alright, we won't trash talk too bad. Or too much, rather.
Yeah, we're just trying to give you the facts. We're not trying to beat on anybody. I mean, we beat on Wooly a little bit because we know Wooly, but we just want to make you understand what you can do to help better yourself, is all. There's no ill intent behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, maybe you'll see a few trolls in chat, but probably not really, and no one's gonna track you down.
Yeah, we're pretty
from the stream.
welcoming community. Yeah.
But we'll go out there. So thank you, Ebola, for being here today. I know you can't make Saturday, so that's why we had a Friday stream, and thank you, Souls.
Mm-hmm. Anytime.
Yeah, I appreciate the rescheduling. It's always fun to come and hang out for this.
All right, we'll definitely try to do it again in the future as well.
Yeah, I will try to make the next one.
All right, and thank you, everybody, and have a good weekend.
Later.